embedded. We've got institutional sign-on. You know, we're high visible. We have lots of high visibility with Google. 75–80% of our traffic comes from Google. We want to look at using things like SOAR to be pushing things into the repository. There's projects, I mean, this is an Edinburgh project, Open Access Repository Junction, and what it does is it's working with PubMed and with Nature and looking at pushing the metadata and the full text straight into your repository after you've deposited into, say, PubMed or Nature. So it's removing any of that kind of, oh, I need to just deposit this again somewhere else. So it's anything that we can do to add value, and value, I think, is one of the things that I sort of really took away from Monica's presentation. One of the things which I think really is a critical factor for us. So you can see in our view of the universe here, the repository here at the centre, and we're doing various things with it. You know, we're connecting to our research system. We're using it to get ready for the National Research Assessment Exercise. There's a range of different options there. Some institutions will use their research system. We're looking at using our repository, and as I see later, that's really kind of driven a lot of uptake and a lot of engagement with the repository. We've looked at taking the feeds from it and embedding it into our publications pages, and that's been a very interesting exercise as well, where suddenly when you're surfacing that data in places outside the repository where the researchers are more familiar with, that really engages. You get a lot of traction there, especially when they go back to review those publications and discover either what you're missing or you know, whatever we've done to actually add or remove various publications. We do things like, you know, we have a Twitter feed that takes us out, and the LDAP, the single sign-on and the credential side of things was absolutely critical to us as well. Anything that you can do to reduce barriers. So if you know, in the early days in advocacy, you'd go, yes, you'd convince them, and then they'd say, right, well, how do I do this, or where do I find the stuff? You go, ah, well, yes, you have to go here, and then you have to create this account, and then, oh, yeah, no, that account isn't actually connected to anything else that you do in the institution, and you could just see things like, you know, the barriers dropping. So you sort of had them, and then you don't have the infrastructure or the low barrier to really follow through. So we've been on what I like to think of as our embedded journey since about 2009, with much thanks to just two projects, Enrich and Inquire, one of which Enrich was looking at focusing on integrating with our research system, and Inquire was looking at value add, adding some additional information such as impact. We worked very closely as part of the Information Environment Programme, and it's been very, very exciting to see us embedding Enlighten just with all of these other systems. So things like the single sign-on, we have it's called a GUID, a Glasgow Unique Identifier. It's managing author disambiguation. I'll mention ORCID, that'll be my first, let's mention ORCID in this presentation. Not doing anything with ORCID at the moment, but locally starting to do the author disambiguation is a challenge, looking at how we actually link author X to publication Y, and that, being able to actually do that has been the sort of launching platform for how we've been able to do some of the other linking with the research systems and with the research excellence exercise. Funding data, so as I'll show, we pull information about who our funders are, what the projects are, and so on, and we marry together now what the projects and the funders are. Again, that's been very interesting, putting the infrastructure in place for that, and then looking at how that actually marries together with research profile pages and capturing non-traditional information into the repository. So as we get ready for things like the Research Excellence Framework, 20% of our UK Research Excellence Framework is going to be on impact. So that's going to be demonstrating the impact of the work that you've done in your publications and your research. But it's also going to be about capturing esteem. So we're using the repository to capture that data as well. So this is my slightly passionate slide. So I believe that embedding is about being stitched into the fabric of the institution. Okay, it's not about being a silo, it's not about being off to one side. It's pretty much everything that Monica said in the previous one. It's about not just technical stuff, it's about culturally, it's about, you know, hearing in, excuse me, I'm so passionate, I'm voiceless. It's about, you know, hearing in research meetings, hearing in the University Senate, people talking about Enlighten, talking about open access, talking about the repository, and it having arrived. Now, I know we still get 10% full text. Thanks very much, Sean, please. We've only got 10% of full text, but I think we're at a really exciting sort of jump-off point to really build on that. Again, the idea of value, not just for the institution, but also for the research funders. You know, let's make it easy for you to report back to your funder. You know, here's what all my publications are. Here's, you know, things I only have to put it in once into the repository, and then it appears in all these other different places. Adding value for the funder so that we can actually go back to Wellcome Trust or to various funders and say, right, yes, it's very easy for you to just pull out, here's everything that we're currently doing for you. The institution itself, UK PLC, not with my UK government hat on, but in terms of knowledge transfer, in terms of the knowledge economy, you know, anything that you can do to actually highlight, increase the visibility, have the impact of your research has to be a good thing. Reuse, this is my reuse. So again, you know, deposit once and then reuse in loads of different places. Research profiles, you know, let's look at all the interoperability, let's look at what kind of crosswalks we can do in terms of aggregation, pulling this data out and making it accessible beyond that. Reducing duplication, you know, users and we as librarians, we hate duplication, so let's not have people, you know, putting stuff in again and again and again. Or if, you know, one of your colleagues has already deposited the paper, that's great. There you are, we'll just link the paper to you. We're not asking you to also add that data. And exploiting new opportunities. You know, once you actually start to have this corpus of data, it suddenly gives you lots of exciting new things to do. There's text mining, there's data mining. We can start looking at sort of collaboration opportunities, looking at business intelligence and metrics and rankings. So suddenly you're taking stewardship, you're taking ownership.